Namaskar, hello, and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of the Gyan Darshan channel. I am Dr. Gitika S. Johri, Faculty at School of Vocational Education and Training and Program Coordinator for the Diploma in Modern Office Practice program. Our today's session is primarily for the learners of the DMOP program, which is also called as Diploma in Modern Office Practice program, wherein we are going to discuss or give you a brief overview of the third course which is being offered under this program, which is the Secretarial Practice course code BSSI-013. So let's begin with today's session by giving you an insight about this entire course 3, which is Secretarial Practice. So learners, we know that the secretaries and office assistants, they play a very important and a very versatile role in the modern office environment. They are expected to have thorough knowledge of management and procedures. They need to have excellent communication and organizational skills. So we can see that the current business environment, it is demanding multi-talented secretaries and office assistants. Now, this course on secretarial practice, it will teach the learners the basic nuances of office management that would help them to handle practical situations in a smooth and effective manner. Whether it is a public office, whether it is a government office or private office or any other kind of office, they all require the assistance and skills of manpower that are capable of handling multiple responsibilities. So we can say that this course has been developed providing a comprehensive outlook for all the learners, enabling them to withstand the requirement of the job market. Now, at the same time, this course is also for people who are looking for an upward mobility in their career. So it is along with the knowledge of your specific job skills. It is also the interpersonal and the communicative skills that will enable your professional life to go forward. So to sum up, learners, we can say that secretaries, they are required to do incredible amount of work to keep a company running. They have to perform routine administrative functions such as drafting correspondence, scheduling appointments, organizing files, providing information, so on and so forth. Now, this course on secretarial practice, we have divided into 3 blocks, and we will be discussing each of these blocks. So let us begin with block 1. We have 3 units in block 1, namely the secretary, communication, and office correspondence. Block 2 has units on reception and public relations, meetings, and report writing. Block 3 has units, sources of information, travel arrangements, and handling cash and bank transactions. We will discuss each of these blocks and their unitization in our session, which we are continuing. So let us begin with block 1. Now, it is a saying that the secretary is the backbone of an organization. He or she is a person who is responsible to do office work, whether it is administrative work such as making appointments, sending letters, dealing with any kind of correspondence, organizing official meetings, events, etc. Their duties may vary according to the nature, size, and type of the organizations. So the organizations, they can be of different types, they can be of different nature, they can be of different sizes. It can be a small organization, it can be a big organization, and when I'm talking about types of the organization, we mean to say it can be a public organization, it can be private, it can be any government organization, etc. So the unit under block 1, this will help you in understanding the jobs and responsibilities, the duties which a secretary is required to perform. At the same time, it will also throw light on the communication and correspondence aspects, which are very important for the growth and goodwill of any organization. So let's begin with unit 1, which is the secretary. Now, there is a saying, or it is rightly said, we can say that if CEO is referred to as the steering wheel of an organization, we can compare the secretary as the gearbox of the same, because it is with the help of the secretary that the stabilization and the acceleration process of the performance of the organization is taking place. Organizations, learners, we see they work in groups and persons, and they're all positioned at managerial level, and they do require the secretarial assistance to fulfill their diversified duties and responsibilities. So it will not be wrong to say that the efficient secretary is the backbone of any organization. So after having completed this unit, because I said this is just an overview of this course on secretarial practice, so I'm not going into the detail of it. I will just be giving you some brief inputs, what is there in each of the blocks in each of the units. So after having completed unit 1, which is on the secretary, learners, you will be able to understand what is the secretary mean. Then we have also discussed in this unit, or you will be, after completing this unit, you will get to know what are the qualities or the skill sets which are required to become a very competent and efficient secretary. Then we have also here in this unit discussed the jobs, duties and responsibilities of a secretary which they have to perform in any organization. Now moving on to unit 2. Unit 2 talks about communication. Now, why does one need to study communication? We can see, learners, that communication is a fundamental aspect of being human as contrasted with any other life forms. We can say that after food, water and air, it is communication which is very essential, and I think so it plays a very crucial role in everybody's life, and it has a very central role to play. Now, we can see that most of our, or half of our waking hours, we are spending in some form of the other in the form of communication, whether we are interacting with people or whether we are, using devices like the mobiles or a laptop or computers. So we can see that most of the time we are in some kind of engaged in some kind of communication, whether in person with somebody or using some, mobile devices or telephone or any kind of any other computers. So for better communication abilities, it is very important that what does the communication do basically? When we're talking about that communication abilities have to be very good. So what does this mean? It means that this will help the individual and the organizations to save time, make the efforts more productive, reduce misunderstandings and help build a positive image and goodwill. Because, if the communication is not proper, we are saying there is communication between departments, there is communication between employees, there is communication between organizations. So if there is ineffective communication, obviously, you are just wasting time. You have not saved on time. You have not saved on any kind of productive work. So effective communication means you are helping the organization in many ways. Now, after having completed this unit on communication, learners, you will be able to define what does communication mean. You will be able to understand the different models of communication, how communication can be depicted. So basically here we have talked about 3 models: the linear model, the interactive model and the transactional model. So I'll give you an example that what is the difference between the linear model and the interactive model. So under the linear model, we can see that the elements are your source from which the communication has originated. There is a message, there is encoding, there is a channel through which it is going, there is decoding, and then there is a receiver. But when we are talking about the interactive model, apart from the elements which we have discussed, it also has 2 more elements which are feedback and context. We can see that these were the 2 flaws in the linear communication. That is why, the interactive model came into being. Because, okay, we have sent the message, the receiver has received the message, but there is no feedback from their end. So how to see that there is proper feedback? So in that context, the interactive model came into being. And then there is another element which is there to it, which is called as context. Context means the time or the place or the environment in which, the communication is taking place. So if you go through the self-learning material, I think so we have explained these models with very good examples, and you will really understand what exactly we are meaning by saying that context and what do you mean by feedback and so on. Now, apart from that, we have also discussed in this unit the different modes of communication, which are interpersonal communication, interpersonal communication, there is interviewing, there is small group discussions or communication, there is public speaking, and there is mass communication. Then apart from this, in this particular unit, we have also discussed about the techniques and procedures for, effective communication. How can communication be improved, whether it is listening communication or writing communication. So because we are talking about communication, so we have to take care of the telephone etiquettes and manner. So we can see that the entire process which is there in communication, whether it is listening, reading, writing, all the skills and how to improve all these communication skill sets have been discussed in this unit on communication. Now, learners, let us move on to Unit 3, which is on office correspondence. Now, office correspondence means writing between individuals and institutions. Institution could be an office, it could be an establishment, it could be a factory, it could be a university, it could be any government department. Every office or institution, they need to connect with their customers, with their students, with their clients, with their suppliers, or in fact with even their own branches in case the organizations are large, and also with regulatory agencies and many others. So what is the most effective way of interconnecting in all this kind of an environment? It is through written communication. So when we're talking about correspondence, here we are seeing that even written communication is a part of a correspondence. So this is the best and the most effective way to connect with your clients and all. Now, communication could be internal, that is within the same organization, or it could be external, that means with the outside world, with individuals or others. Communication through written media, it helps you to reach dispersed audience and conveys messages with minimum distortion. See, when a communication is in the written format or the office correspondence is in a written format, we will be able to send it to the various audiences and the distortion in the message will be very less because whatever is written is communicated. But when we are talking about oral communication, there is much more chances of getting the information getting distorted, because suppose if I pass on an information to X, he will take that information in some form. Okay, he has understood it in some form. When he's passing on to person Y, definitely he will add some things to it, and then he will pass it on to the person Y. Then to person Z, Y will pass it on to Z. So ultimately, whoever is the receiver of communication, or whoever has received that kind of a message, we don't know whether the complete message or the message which we wanted to convey has reached that person or not. So in that context, we can say that written communication or written correspondence is the best form of correspondence. So after having completed this block, learners, you will be able to understand what is office correspondence, what are the difference between internal and external correspondence. We all know that when you're working in the office environment, we have correspondence in the form of memos, circulars, notices, and letters. And letters means we are sending emails, letters to even people of the outside world. So when we're talking about letters, we need to know what are the different parts of the letters, right from heading to the salutation, to the body of the letter, complimentary clause, signature block, and of course, the differentiation between the different kinds of letters. Because the letter which we are sending to a friend, it will not be the same as we are sending it to any government organization or any public organization or any other person. So here we have to discuss the different formats of the letter with a lot of examples and a lot many, visuals. We have tried to explain all these aspects. So after completing block 1, learners, let us move on to block 2. Now in block 2 of the course, we will help you in understanding the roles, duties and functions of the secretary in organizing meetings, preparing minutes and making report. They are all a very important part and parcel of any organization and as a role of a secretary. So let us begin with Unit 1. Unit 1 talks about reception and public relations. Now, we know that in any modern organization or in fact in any workplace, we receive hundreds of visitors every day. So the first impression the visitor gets is always influenced by the manner in which he or she is received and also by the look of the reception area. So we can see that for any client, for any customer, reception is the first point of contact. Now, with this impression, the visitor can easily analyze, many things about the organization or the office. Now, there is a saying that the first impression is the last impression. Therefore, it is very essential to ensure that the receptionist's appearance, whoever is sitting at the reception, and the manner, they have to be very cordial. It has to be, they have to have such a impression that it can have an everlasting effect on the visitors. Apart from the personality or apart from the physical appearance, it is very important that the receptionist should have the ability to speak clearly, and at the same time they also need to handle tactful situations. You get some kind of visitors or clients which are very difficult to handle, so you should have the tact to handle such kind of difficult situations with such kind of customers or clients. So after having completed this unit, you will be able to understand what is a reception, and you will be also able to understand the importance of reception, which in context to the image of the reception room and the key areas of reception, the role of the receptionist, and then of course here when we are talking about public relations, every organization or department has a PR department. So they have a very important role to play. So here we have also discussed what is a PR department or public relations, what is their functions and what is its importance and why is it essential. Because it is the PR department, which basically, you can say, they are the ones, who basically propagate about the organizations. They kind of, tell the organization about the organization where they are working, or anything about the organization. So they are in direct contact with the outside world. So the better the position of the organization, the better it is for everyone. Now learners, let us move on to unit 2, which is on meetings. Now we have been discussing about the roles of secretaries, because this course is entirely on the secretary. As we mentioned, the course is the secretarial practice course. So we can see that meeting also plays a very important part in any organization. It takes place at all levels, whether we are talking about the top management level, whether we are talking about the medium level management, or we are talking about the lower level management. And therefore we can say that meetings are an inevitable part of any organization. They are the best form of communication, as members are able to discuss many issues in the face-to-face mode. So it is very important for the secretary to make sure that all the arrangements of the meetings are made in the way their active involvement or as it is expected. So the more the secretary knows about how to convene the meeting or how it has to be conducted, the easier it is for them to assist their executives in the conduct of the meeting, because in that case, lot many discussions are possible. So after having completed this unit on meetings, the learners, you will be able to understand what does a meeting mean, what is the need and importance for a meeting. Then they will also be able to know what are the different types of meetings. It can be a private meeting, it can be a public meeting, it can be an annual general meeting, it can be an extraordinary general meeting, it can be a shareholders meeting, it can be a statutory meeting. Then, the role of the secretaries, what is required, what are the requisites of the meeting, that is before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. All the activities of a secretary have been discussed in this particular unit. And last but not the least, we have also explained the importance of agenda and notice and minutes of the meeting, because they all form a part of your meeting. Now learners, let us move on to unit 3, which is on report writing. Now in today's modern office, executives, they have to take various decisions which are based on logical thinking. And how can we derive logical thinking? It can be derived through factuals and sound data. We can see that management is just not based on intuition, but on the scientific methods which are derived from facts and figures. So it is continuously supplying all kinds of information to the executives through reports of different kinds. So such information is required to be communicated in the written form to save time, as well as to provide a record, which is very handy. Therefore, we can say that reports as a source of communication have become the primary task of any modern office today. The main purpose of a report is to provide information to the executives so that they can take timely decisions and actions accordingly. So after having completed this unit, learners, you will be able to know what is the meaning of the term report, what is its importance, what are the different types of reports. Reports can be short also, they can be long reports also. Then there are certain routine type of reports, there are special reports, there are statutory reports, there are technical reports. How a report has to be drafted, some important key points which one need to know, that how the reports need to be drafted, that has been discussed in this particular unit. And how a technical report has to be prepared and drafted has also been discussed in this unit on report writing. Now learners, with this we complete block 2. Now moving on to block 3. Now we have been saying that the secretary is the backbone of the organization. So apart from all the duties, the responsibilities and all what we have discussed, so far, they have to be well versed in other areas also. So what are the other areas? The secretary needs to have good understanding of the major sources of information which they might be required to use while functioning in the office. As it is rightly said, the right type of information is very important for any organization at the right time with the right person. So apart from this, the secretary, what we are discussing in this blog, they also have to plan the travel arrangements of their boss, which it could be, the journey could be from one place to another or from one country to the other. Then apart from that, the secretary should also know how to deal with activities related to bank and cash operations. So this block 3 has discussed all these aspects which we are going to take up individually. Let us begin with Unit 1, Sources of Information. No one knows all the information and answers to all the questions, but if a person knows the potential source for finding the required information, he can attract success at all fronts. We know that all facts cannot be memorized by anybody. However, one may need any fact or any piece of information at any point of time for one's personal use or even for a professional use. So as a student of office management, you should be knowing that how you can get all these general and specific sources of information. So here in this unit, we have discussed about the sources of information which have been classified into 3 main categories. The first one is human beings, the second is reference material, and the third is media. So these are the major sources of our information. Though learners, we know that humans are the easiest source of information, but one may get simple piece of information even from your colleague who's sitting in the next cabin. But today in the modern time, one may need many complex information which is not even there with your colleague. So for this purpose, we may take the help of reference material, which can be in the form of dictionary, thesaurus, encyclopedia, ready reckoners, or even office manuals, or even through different sources of media, which are magazines, periodicals, newspapers, or even, as a matter of fact, internet, or any government publications. And the last resort, if you're not able to get any information from anywhere, then by applying the Right to Information Act, which is the RTI Act. Now learners, let us see what is there in Unit 2, which talks about travel arrangements. Now in today's time, travel has become a very popular means of relaxation. But we should just not think it as a means of relaxation, but it is arguably has more dimensions to it, because it forces us to think about our lives in new categories. So it is through travel that new ideas spread, and thereafter, more importantly, how the contacts help us to promote these new ideas. So here in this unit on travel, we have explained why travel is important, what are the different modes of travel. We know that travel can take place by air, train, or off road. So all the modalities with respect to these 3 modes of transport has been discussed. Then the secretary's role in preparing the travel plan or the tour of the boss, then process of hotel reservations, all have been defined. So we can say the role or the duties of the secretary have all been defined as far as this unit on travel arrangements is concerned. Now the last unit under block 3 is handling cash and bank transactions. Now this unit on handling cash and bank transactions primarily discusses the role of a secretary while dealing with all the activities related to bank and cash. At the same time, it also discusses the different kind of bank accounts which are maintained by the individuals and the procedures which are related to deposit and withdrawal of money from the bank. So here we have seen that the need and importance of bank reconciliation statement has also been discussed, because being the secretary, they are, using money also, they have a petty cash book, that how the petty cash book can be used, how you can reconcile your cash book and passbook. So all the familiarity with regard to this has been discussed. Now learners, lastly, I want to say that the role of the secretary is changing manifold. Now why is this? This is because in view of the global era and development in IT skills, work profile of the secretary has entirely changed. The top management level and the senior executives do have to delegate their routine administrative tasks to their private secretary. Now, with this change in the scenario, it is evident that the secretary requires a lot of expertise and skills, as usually every secretary has to directly report to the senior executives in an organization. But let me also tell you that no two private secretaries perform exactly the same work. Therefore, we cannot just lay down some arbitrary list of duties. I'll give an example. A personal secretary to a junior executive has to perform the work as a front office assistant, maybe as a stenographer, as a multitasking assistant, etc. While a personal secretary to the senior executive has to collect information on different topics, they have to draft reports, they have to draft speeches, write down the proceedings of the meetings or seminars, and give the advice to the executive on certain administrative matters. So we can see that the role of the secretary is changing manifold. They are into too many multitasking tasks, and all these aspects related to this role of secretary has been discussed in our course on the secretarial practice. I hope, learners, you have enjoyed today's session, and you will also enjoy reading the course on secretarial practice. In case you have any doubt, you can please write to us on the following email address, which is dmopsovt@ignou.ac.in. Thank you and namaskar.